I'd like to share, if I can, just a tiny bit about Dr. Pleasance, and then we'll give the floor to her. Dr. Angela Pleasance is the Vice President for Clergy and Church Relations for the Wesleyan Covenant Association. She's a lifelong Methodist. And at the age of 16, according to what I hear, she started teaching Sunday school. In college, she was already a certified lay speaker. She's a graduate of the Duke Divinity School and until recently an elder in the Western North Carolina Annual Conference. I think she must like North Carolina because she lives in Charlotte at the moment. And I believe, at least it seemed inferred from everything I read, that she pastored for many years. And she served as a district superintendent for 4 years and the chief missional strategist. She's also served as the chairwoman of the conference's board of elders, a member of the board of ordained ministry. She's been a police chaplain for 3 different communities in North Carolina and for the United States Secret Service, which I found very interesting. So, without further ado, Reverend Pleasance, it is our pleasure that you are with us. Thank you for spending this time with us.
Thank you. It is so good to be here. I do have a tendency to talk fast for translation purposes. If you hear me going too fast, Jessica, I can see you on the screen, so just raise your hand and say slow down. And that would be great. Before I begin, Keith Boyette bring his regrets that he could not be on the call today. He had a death in the family. So he will be leaving town later this afternoon, traveling to Delaware to spend with his family. The funeral, his brother-in-law passed away. He has battled cancer for a couple of years, and the funeral is going to be Friday. So he sends his regrets that he cannot be with you, but he will be with you in January. Also, I found it very fascinating. The person from Croatia, who I see on the screen, one of my sergeants, I still work with law enforcement. One of my sergeants is from Croatia. She just actually went back home over the summer to spend some time. And so here in Charlotte, it's a very eclectic, culturally beautiful place. And there are some authentic Croatian food and Bosnian food. And so I'm always, she drags me to these restaurants, and now I just go freely because the food is amazing. I'm a foodie, and it is amazing. So I have to tell her that I was on a Zoom call with someone from Croatia. And I also saw my friend Reyes from Romania on the call. So it's so good to see him again, which I had an invitation to come to Romania. So I can't wait to do that one day. But it is a pleasure to be here with each one of you. Basically, what I will share is what I have been working on. I started with the Wesleyan Covenant Association on staff in July of this year. And there are some things that I have been working on since July. And that's what I will share with you. I know some of the things may be a little different because of how some countries, including the United States, how it's governed as opposed to other places. Jessica, thank you for the information you sent me. One of the things that I've learned is that what we experience here with bishops, yours is a little different as far as property. So there will be some things that are slightly different. And so I'm also looking to learn more, which will help me in the work that I'm doing of how many of our Methodist churches in other countries are structured. So I will talk mainly about laity, the role of laity, ordination, and what that looks like. And I will also share with some information of what I'm working on currently, which is criteria for theological schools and seminaries, and those that will not only align, but what will be approved seminaries. And again, it will be great to learn also from our international brothers and sisters of the theological schools and seminaries in your areas, because that will also help with the work. The intent overall is to truly be global. And I will end the presentation that I will give this morning talking about what that means of being global, and we'll share a little bit of the work that we did on a task force. Reyes from Romania was a part of that task force. There were 22 of us globally that worked on race and equality. And we looked at what it will be like to actually be a global denomination, not heavily Western, but actually global. And that is what I'm greatly excited about. So as I begin, as I said, I will first begin with laity. And I will also address a lot of questions that I received through email and from different parts of the world where people are asking, where will I have a part? Where will I have a place? So that will be incorporated in what I share. One of the things that excite me is the focus that will be upon laity. A lot of the leadership will come from not so much heavily bishops, but from our local churches, from our local congregations. The focus will be upon laity being in partnership with our clergy. So some of the questions that I have received from those who are certified lay speakers, those who are lay ministers, they have asked, will we have a place? Will we still have certified lay ministers? And the answer is yes. In paragraph 402 of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines, there's a section in there on certified lay ministers. So if there is someone who is already a certified lay minister, they have completed their educational requirements as a certified lay minister, they will be able to transfer over into the Global Methodist Church as a certified lay minister. For individuals who are in the process of working on their educational requirements as a certified lay minister, they will still be able to transfer in, and where they are in the process, they would not have to go back and repeat any of the educational requirements. That would be brought over with them. And so they would continue their educational requirements as a certified lay minister. Now, we will just have one title, which is certified lay minister, and that title will incorporate certified lay servants, certified lay speakers, certified lay ministers, deaconesses, and home missioners. All of that, certified lay minister will encompass all of those individuals within that component. And so we would no longer have individual titles, but they will all come up under certified lay ministers. So in answer to those questions where the laity was asked the question, will we have a place? Yes. And there are even occasions that we will use certified lay ministers to preach in local churches. There are some currently, and that will continue, that may be given special permission from the bishop and the cabinet to pastor within a local church until a pastor can be appointed. If that certified lay minister desires to continue the process into ordination, they will have that opportunity to do that as well. But certified lay ministers will be heavily used in the Global Methodist Church. The other question that I often receive is centered around licensed local pastors.
Получаваме е свързан с лицензираните местни пастори, за местните пастори.
Where do we have a place? Because we do not see anything in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline that specifically say licensed local pastors. And one of the reasons why is because we will no longer have that title, but we will still have the licensed pastors. They will be ordained in a deacon status. And then again, working towards, for those who feel called to work towards elder, they will continue their educational requirements towards elder. Now, we also have, which very few in number, we have what's called associate members. Associate members are licensed local pastors who have completed additional educational requirements, and they are now licensed local pastors for life. For example, if a licensed local pastor retires, they no longer have their license. They become laity and they go back into a local church. But as an associate member, after completing additional educational requirements, once they retire, they can maintain their license. They can also vote, have extra voting at annual conferences, whereas licensed local pastors are more limited in what they can vote on.
Като дякон или като старейшин. До момента, в който бъде пенсиониран.
This church is formed and they want to align with the Global Methodist Church. If a licensed local pastor has completed the educational requirements to be ordained a deacon, at the following annual conference, after going through an evaluation process and a vetting process, they will be able to be ordained at their next annual conference. And they would continue to work in their educational requirements. And for those who feel called to go on to elder, they would continue to work towards that educational requirements to be ordained an elder. If a licensed local pastor has completed all of the requirements to be ordained a deacon and ordained an elder, then once again, at the following annual conference, they will first be ordained a deacon, then they would be ordained an elder. So there is a place for licensed local pastors, there is a place for associate members. Now, another question that I receive for those who are ordained deacons, they often wonder, well, does this mean that we're just a stepping stone to be an ordained an elder? And the answer to that is no. And one of the reasons why is how the Global Methodist Church views the ordination process. We don't view it as one stepping stone to another, but more of a nested ministry. So it's more like a nested ministry or a linear ministry instead of a ministry that's going off in different branches. And there are wonderful articles written about this. If you visit the Wesleyan Covenant Association website and go under articles, Suzanne Nicholson, who is actually an ordained deacon, has written a beautiful article that just paints a wonderful picture of what this looks like. And one of the questions that I often receive is, should we stop and wait for the Global Methodist Church to be formed and then continue with the candidacy process? And so I've been encouraging individuals to stay in that process, because once the Global Methodist Church is formed, candidates continue. They can continue at the point in the process where they were in the United Methodist Church. So do not cease working at that point. Continue to work through the process, because we would not want anyone to come in behind of where they could be at this point. That I often receive is, if I take this at this seminary, but the seminary end up not being one of the approved seminaries in the Global Methodist Church, will that count? And most likely it will. And also many of the cases will be looked at on the individual cases. So once again, if you are in a seminary and you're not sure if it will be one that will align with the Global Methodist Church or the criteria that we have, continue to take the classes within that particular seminary. So again, it will be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and we will continue that individual where they are in the process. So it's not nailed down yet how we would even look at the seminaries and determine which one would meet certain criteria. So we will have a list of what we're looking at to kind of judge where the seminaries are, but that's still a work in progress. So again, we would not want to hold anyone up from the work that they're doing. So that's those in the candidacy process. Also, senior status. I get many questions from retired ministers that say, we have mandatory retirement in the United Methodist Church, but I feel like I can continue to serve. And one of the things I used to always tell when I was in the local church pastoring, and I would hear many of my seniors, they would say, well, my work is done. Let the young come in and take over. I have nothing left to do. And my response to them was always, when did the Holy Spirit have a particular age that he told us to stop? He is always moving. He is always active. So there is no such thing as retirement. So I was so excited when I saw in the Global Methodist Church that there is no retirement status because we're holding to the biblical model that you do not retire in the kingdom of God. But we do have senior status. And so a clergy can take senior status, but even in senior status, they can continue to serve, or they can remain inactive and not serve, but they would still be in senior status. And so again, that is found in the transitional book of Doctrine and Discipline, where you can read about the senior status of clergy. There are some miscellaneous questions that often come in to my email. And one of the questions is around pensions. Many clergy want to know, how will the pensions be handled? Will a pastor be credited for years of service in the UMC, or as he or she transitions into the Global Methodist Church? The question on pension is, I always tell people that's a Keith question, and he's working on that right now. He actually has formed a task force, and they are currently working on the pension of clergy. And so look for something to come out in the near future relating to pensions. The other question that I often receive is, how would churches be involved in the appointment process? Because the appointment process will look a little different than how it looks now in the current United Methodist Church. So there's many paragraphs under Part 5, the superintendency in the transitional book of Doctrines and Discipline, that talks about the appointment process of local churches. Some of those paragraphs it's 50, 509, 511, 513, and 514. So under all those different paragraphs, it talks about the criteria for appointments. Part 5 in the transitional book of Doctrines and Discipline. The other question that I often receive, and it's a very common question, many of you probably have the same question, which is, what if we do not have the Global Methodist Church and we're not able to vote on the protocol? What is the next step for us? And basically right now, our prayer is that we will have General Conference and we will be able to vote on the protocol. I think everybody see the importance of working hard to try to ensure that we will have General Conference in 2022. The goal of the Wesleyan Covenant Association is that we do move out together after the protocol is voted on. And if not, then the Wesleyan Covenant Association will evaluate what next steps will be. But at this juncture, we are waiting for the commission to meet and to hear from them if General Conference will be held. So that is our hope. That's our prayer. But at this point, we cannot say that there's actually a plan B, but the plan B is the Transitional Leadership Council will come together to discuss, if we don't have General Conference, what would be the next step. And so you will receive information on that. These are some of the things that I have been working on since July. And one of the other things is just the whole nature of being a global Methodist church. It was a great joy to work alongside individuals last year. It was 22 of us. One of us is on the call now, Reyes, where we worked on the race and equality task team. And we talked about what does that look like to be a global church. The thing that I loved about that is that was the first time in 22 years of ministry in the United Methodist Church and lifelong ministry as a United Methodist, that working with this team, I truly felt global. We came together as strangers, but it seemed like we knew each other forever. The team consisted of individuals from Romania, Philippines, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Zimbabwe. We had Native American, we had Black American, we had Caucasian, Asian American. I mean, it was just Hispanic, Latina. It was such a beautiful mixture. And one of the things that we worked on, the main thing that we worked on is developing a process of what it will look like to, as I said, to truly be global from a biblical foundation. I know in many countries, for example, here in the United States, in our Western culture, we have our issues centered around race and ethnicity. In different parts of Africa, it is tribalism. We learned in the Philippines, it's the indigenous people. And so in different places, it's different things, but the root of it is when we get away from the biblical concept of who we are as people of God. And that's what we wanted to bring it back to, because the reality, if we look at the biblical concept, we're all the human race. And we have different ethnicities, we have different nationalities, and that's what makes it so beautiful. One of the things I shared recently in a meeting is I grew up in a family, I have a very ethnic, diverse family, and we posted on social media for our American Thanksgiving celebration we had here recently. And people were saying how eclectic our family was. My grandmother she was biracial. And so within my family, we have English and Irish and different parts of Africa. We have Moroccan and Togo and South African all mixed within our family. And growing up, I thought that was normal. I thought everybody had that until I got older and in our country and realized, whoa, everybody don't have that. But what would it look like for a denomination, a church to really reflect that? I think that is beautiful. And that's what I see in the Global Methodist Church, what we can be when we hold to our biblical roots and foundation. So that's what brings me joy about what we are forming together. Now, the last thing I wanted to share is there may be some things that you look at and you think, well, that doesn't seem complete. Why are some of these things left open that we just don't have answers to? And the reason why, once the protocol passed, called things that are not as though they were, once the protocol passes and the Global Methodist Church is launched, in between that time, we will have a transition. And so and that's why we have the transitional book of doctrine and discipline until we have our convening general conference. And at the convening general conference, this is where the delegates, the people, will be able to speak into the full formation of the Global Methodist Church. So it's not just a few people, those of us with the Wesleyan Covenant Association, it's not just us making all the decisions, but it will be the people, it will come from the floor of individuals who will speak into this to help form the Global Methodist Church. And even after that, it will be a continual process of forming. So that's the other thing that excites me. It's not so much top down as much as it is incorporating all of us together, able to speak into this. So that is basically what I wanted to present before you today of everything that I've been working on. Some of your questions may be in areas that Keith and Walter have been working on, and I will just kind of jot those down to make sure they receive it. So when they share and talk with you, they will be able to lift that up. But it's exciting. These are exciting times. And so I thank you for listening to this presentation. And so I would love to just hear from you at this point and see either what questions or what things that you want to share that can help me to understand better as well.